Move to the big CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Remember, the TMC has been one of the most vocal and vociferous opponents of the demonetization drive. Mamata Banerjee has been leading the opposition's charge against demonetization and has called Prime Minister Modi's announcement of demonetization akin to Hitler's rule. Let's go across now to the Finance Minister of Bengal, who also happens to be the chairman of the Empowered State Finance Ministers panel on the goods and services tax. He's, of course, been leading the GST negotiations. Dr. Amit Mitra, thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Dr. Mitra, you're an economist, sir. You've dealt your entire life with numbers, with data. Let me ask you about the economic rationale and the economic argument for opposing demonetization.
Let me first start by saying, has any country in the world which has a democracy and a market economy done an 86% money withdrawal from the market? The answer is no. Since you asked me as an economist, Larry Summers, professor at Harvard, what does he say? This is, and by the way, he has been working towards withdrawing the $100 notes in the United States on a gradual basis. He says chaos, loss of trust in government. What does Dr. Amartya Sen, Nobel Prize winner in economics, since you asked me about the economists, what does he say? Only an authoritarian government can calmly cause such misery to the people. What does Kaushik Basu at Cornell and in the World Bank, what does Kaushik Basu say? Very deeply concerned, disagree. What does Ajay Shah say, who's a monetarist economist? So people would think maybe he is in favor of this. You know what he says? He says that if you have an aquarium of fish and you are some kind of a carnivore, that you convert the aquarium of fish into a fish soup.
Yes.
You can never put the soup back into the aquarium. It's not possible. So let me give you some examples. You take simply, as your readers would see, FMCG, fast-moving consumer. Biscuit falls by 40%, salty snacks by 35%. Let me go to another area that normally people don't refer to, which is secondary steel, which is very important for Bengal. Do you know 70% of secondary steel plants are closed? Now you go to the power loom in Maharashtra, not in Bengal. 70% of power looms are closed, and Bihar, UP and Telangana workers are going back to their states. You take diamonds in Gujarat. Do you know that 70% of Bengali workers in Gujarat, who are very large in number in the diamond industry, are all coming home? What does that mean? That means there is a distinct case of a recessionary tendency which is substantiated by this data. Let me give you one more. You surely respect Center for Monitoring Indian Economy.
Yes.
CMIE. What does it put out?
Yes, sir.
It says that, you know what CMIE finds by research? Transactions.
Yes, sir. I'm aware. I'm aware, sir.
Is 1.28
I'm aware of CMIE,
crores.
sir.
And,
I am aware of CMIE, Dr. Mitra. I'm aware of CMIE. In fact, we've had Mahesh Vyas on the show. We've had Mahesh Vyas on the show saying that it will have an impact of 61,500 crores only by December 30th on the business and enterprise sector alone, and they've factored in 1.28 lakh crores, as you rightfully pointed out. Sir, I'm aware of these numbers. I'm aware of the economic arguments against demonetization. I had Larry Summers, co-author, on my show, Natasha Shereen, talking about why they've raised concerns about demonetization. But the fact of the matter, Dr. Mitra, is that the government has decided that there is going to be no rollback. The government has decided that they will go through. The Prime Minister has asked the country for 50 days, sir. I want to now specifically ask you about whether you believe this disruption that you talked about. You talked about steel mills, you talked about FMCG, you talked about the informal sector. West Bengal has a large informal sector. Most other economists that we've been speaking to, while acknowledging that there will be disruption in the short term, even to supply chains, believe that it will perhaps start to pick up in 2 or 3 quarters. You're saying that the disruption will be much more long term?
You see, what happens is, if you have a recessionary condition and disruption for 2-3 quarters, as you say, the entire supply chain comes under risk. It takes longer for a country to get back on its even keel. I'll give you an example. 3 billion notes can be produced a month by the government if it is 3 shifts a day, 24/7. Now, how many notes do you need? 500 rupee notes to get back into the market. You need 17.5 billion notes. That itself gives you an idea that it will take 6 months to put back the notes that you have eliminated in the marketplace. 2, I was shocked by the fact that the government admits its failure by introducing an amnesty scheme for the black marketeers, saying that you come and give your black market money and we will tax you this much, etc. No thought, no scenario building. I have never seen a government. You know which countries have done this? 6 countries have done this when they were dictatorships. Russia has done it thrice. Zaire has done it. And countries I can list to you, Ghana has done it. And every one of them failed. So my question is, when you demonetize 86% of your monetary circulation, we call it MV is equal to PY, money multiplied by velocity. You have withdrawn from that government in the system 86% of the money. This has never been done in a democracy with market economy. I'll give you one more example, Shereen ji. Take the case of UP. 66% of the Gram Panchayats of UP do not have banks. Where are we living as middle class educated people? We don't have contact with them. Do you know what it is? The number is in Bihar?
No, but
63%.
Dr. Mitra, you talked about UP, you talked about Bihar, but sir, the government of Bihar is supporting this government. The government of Bihar, the Chief Minister of Bihar, Nitish Kumar, is supporting this government. It is in fact Mamata Banerjee in Patna today who's opposing this, but Nitish Kumar is supporting the government's demonetization drive.
I want to keep, right now I want to keep politics out of it. You asked me a question as an economist.
Sure.
Now, after 5 years of working in Bengal towards opening banks in Gram Panchayats, we still have 21% of our Gram Panchayats, much better than others, without banks. Now, where are we living? We live in cities, we live middle class lives, we use credit cards, we use electronic process, and overnight we think the entire India of common people, and my constituency, I know where poor people live, overnight there's going to be a change. And the way it is being done, it is undoubtedly Amartya Sen. I don't agree with him every time, but he is absolutely right. This is dictatorial in the sense that overnight you do it and then you start reversing yourself. One particular day, 14 changes were made. Obviously no preparation. Obviously no clarity. Which economist was consulted for this, I would like to know. Was the chief economic advisor consulted? I doubt it. Forget others. Nobody is consulted. 3 people or 4 people run the show. This looks like Zaire to me. This looks to me like Libya.
Well, Dr. Mitra, the Prime Minister's argument... The Prime Minister's argument there is that this was a massive operation and hence required utmost secrecy, and which is why only a handful of people were in the know. But, you know, let's leave that aside, sir, and let me talk to you about the impact that we've already seen. It's been over 20 days now since the 8th of November notification came in. You were talking about the impact on the informal sector. Tell me about what is the situation in West Bengal in terms of job losses. We've been trying to elicit data from the government. We haven't had much luck. Tell me at least about your state, sir. What has been the impact as far as job losses are concerned?
Let me submit to you, job loss is connected to production. I have already demonstrated to you, not only in West Bengal, of course it is key, all over the country. I'm talking about organized manufacturing. I'm not talking about informal sector only. Informal sectors are today in huge trouble. West Bengal has informal sector. By the way, 80% to 90% of India in terms of employment is from informal sector. That data may vary between 80 and 93%. 20% of India's GDP is produced by the informal sector. And we just wish it away. Oh, they don't matter. So now you go to agriculture. I would like to ask you, When you're finishing your kharif crop, you have to sell it. You are going to plant mustard. You're going to now go to the rabi crop. What do you need? For the rabi, you need fertilizer. You need all these ingredients, and you have no cash.
Yes.
Where do you think the farmers are going to get this money from? Oh, they are going to all use some mobile phone to get money. I mean, this is the limit of imagination going amok. And we middle-class people stand here and believe it because we use the cell phone and we use the electronic process. Hello?
Sure.
India is not us. There is another India which is in very serious trouble. And many of the middle-class people are as well in trouble.
Dr. Mitra, if I may put forward to you some of the arguments that the government is making, and one specific charge that they're making which pertains to your state, sir, and that is the surge in deposits in Dhan accounts. Now, I'm going as per reports. Reports seem to suggest that prior to the 8th of November, sir, you had about 44,094 accounts, Dhan accounts or zero balance accounts, and you had deposits to the tune of 6,286 crore rupees. Now, the government seems to suggest that West Bengal leads the country in the rise in deposits in Dhan accounts. Of course, it would be naive to suggest that this is black. It would be naive to suggest that this is black money, sir, but can you give me some sense of the surge in deposits that we've seen in Dhan accounts and also the actual number of Dhan accounts in West Bengal?
I think first of all, let me correct your perception. The government spoke of this some time ago as a leak, that West Bengal is number one. Do you know what the latest figure says? Kindly check it up. West Bengal is 10th in number. The spurt has been 70% in India on average. It has been only 42% in West Bengal. So this is the data now we have got. Now what is amazing is you quietly put a leak politically saying West Bengal has a huge trust in Dhan accounts of black money. The truth is we are 10th today according to today's data. And average spurt has been 70%. West Bengal is 42%. And don't forget, economists have argued that this is a transaction money that the small and medium and informal sector was holding, which they perhaps put back into the bank. I can't say all of it or none of it is black money or held by somebody, but economists argue that states with large agricultural sector, with large informal sector, with large small and medium enterprise, by the way, West Bengal is number one in MSME bank lending today in India. So that fits in with the economist's perspective. Therefore, my submission to you is we are 10th in number, not number one. This was quiet political leak done by somebody. We are 42% of spurt when India's average is 70%. Please testify and check the data. You haven't been able to get the data. I've managed to get the data.
Well, thank you for sharing that data with us, Dr. Mitra. But, since we are talking about the impact as far as growth is concerned, so the government's economic argument is that we are now going to be faced with a scenario of lowered interest rates. In fact, the government is talking about going back to an era of Vajpayee era kind of interest rates. They believe that this will provide, we don't know how much is going to be finally extinguished, what kind of dividend arrangement the Reserve Bank has with the government. As I said, I'm not going to speculate beyond what is already in the public domain. But the suggestion is that the government will use that to try and pump prime the economy, affordable housing, and so on and so forth. That's the economic argument of the government, that this is what will propel growth, this is what will propel the economy.
I think you are aware that economists of all hues have agreed that GDP growth will decline. Now, quantum of decline varies from up to 3% to 1%. Dr. Manmohan Singh put on his economist's hat. Aside from any political process, he said clearly on the floor of Parliament on record that he expects a 2% decline in GDP, which is a conservative estimate, he said. Others are looking at 3%. Some optimistic economists are looking at 1 to 1.5% decline. Now, I want to ask you, what was the purpose of this? Counterfeit money. Do you know how much counterfeit money there is in India according to government's own studies? 400 crores. Now for 400 crores you swat a fly with a 14.5 lakh crores. Now you come to black money.
You know, since you talked about terror financing, Dr. Mitra, since you talked about terror financing, you know, the government through various spokespeople have come out and said that they're surprised and in fact disappointed with your government's response because you have been talking about the scourge of terror financing. So they were actually hoping that you would appreciate the government's move and support the government's move. In fact, the finance minister coming out very strongly and saying that he's disappointed with the position taken by the Bengal government.
I think I must explain to you. We are all uniformal in our view against terror funding or counterfeiting. And I've given you the number. Counterfeit is 400 crores according to central government's own estimates. Number two, what is the quantum of money that has gone abroad? Has anybody given you data? There is data available which says 35 lakh crores between 2004 and 2013. And this has been published in various news media as well, that research. My question is, by this demonetization, have you attacked them? No. Second, everybody agrees that part of the black money has been converted into assets in the form of housing in the real estate sector. How has that worked? Have you attacked that? Others say that black money is in gold bullions. Have you attacked that? Do richer people hold money at home in big boxes of cash? No. Economists say either they send it abroad or they convert into real estate or they convert into bullions. So my question is, none of these gets addressed. You don't have a package to attack black money, and of all people, today you announce amnesty. You were saying you're against black money, the government says. Now today you're asking the black money people to come and deposit their money. This is ridiculous. You demonetize to hit the black money. Great. Then you ask them, you please come and deposit and we'll charge you a tax. That means you're admitting your failure. That demonetization hasn't wiped out black money. So you're inviting them to come and deposit at a tax rate and an amnesty scheme being given. That means there's no thought.
Yes.
There is no scenario development. So my concern is this the way a democracy with a market economy of India's size, leader in the world, functions? By 3 people or 4 people in an economy. That's okay for Zaire,
Dr. Mitra,
but not for India. Okay for Russia.
No.
During the period of
I get
Soviet
your point,
Union,
sir,
but not for us.
But if I may move away from demonetization, sir, and talk to you about the other big economic sort of event, and that is the passage of the goods and services tax. So you are the chairperson of the empowered state finance ministers. So far, the GST Council has been very smooth in its functioning. In fact, we assumed that the winter session was going to be about the GST bill being passed, but it's now about demonetization. Do you believe demonetization has derailed the goods and services tax?
Let me explain this to you. When we went into full force, and Mamata Banerjee, as you know, in her manifesto supported GST, I, as elected as chairperson of the Empowered Committee of Finance Ministers, worked avidly for it. What was the assumption? The assumption was there's going to be a fiscal destabilization. For how long? Up to 5 years, definitely 2-3 years. Therefore, we asked for compensation of the state revenues from the centre for 5 years. And the centre agreed and put it in the constitutional amendment. Later, the Union Finance Minister suggested in the GST Council up to 14% rate of growth of taxes, whoever does not achieve, we will compensate them. All this under the assumption that there's going to be a massive fiscal destabilization. And we have to address it head on, and for that we developed the whole model. All of a sudden comes a second whammy of demonetization, which is a much bigger process than the GST process. GST is fundamental. This is temporal, which moves towards a recession. Now you tell me, any logical person, When you expected a destabilization of the fiscal structure, you prepared for it, you sought compensation, we all agreed. Then without any understanding or notice, without any preparation, suddenly comes this dictatorial process of 86% demonetization. My question to you and your viewers is, can we face these two destabilization processes simultaneously for the common people, for the small business, for the medium business, for large business, for governments themselves? I have to take away several directorates of taxes because of GST. There'll be no service tax. There'll be no other kind of tax. Only one GST.
Yes.
Now, all this change is going to happen. We are going to absorb it. We are going to get compensated. All this has been worked out. And suddenly comes like a hammer.
So what?
Demonetization,
What
big destabilization.
What now then? What now, Dr. Mitra? Because the GST Council is meeting to deliberate on the draft GST law on the 2nd and 3rd of December. If I hear what you're saying, it seems to me that you would not like to take this process any further at this point in time.
I can only say that I will have to talk to my other colleagues, senior finance ministers, to understand whether the state revenues can survive or not. The figures I gave you about closing of industry, what does it mean for revenue? Revenue will steeply decline. I have seen a study done by Telangana government, which is not Bengal, that they will lose 20% of their revenue due to demonetization, which is 10,000 crores, and only in 4 items: stamp duty, excise matter, and few items like that, not even taking into consideration VAT. So my question to you is, the finance ministers of India, states, will have to sit and think about the fact. Yes, go ahead.
So because as far as the losses on account of the GST are concerned, sir, that compensation is going to be provided for the next 5 years. That is guaranteed under the GST law, sir, and for which a cess is also going to be imposed on certain luxury items to fund the compensation. But you're saying that apart now, either states will want higher compensation, or you're going to have to go right back to the drawing board?
Let me submit to you what was the number. The number was 50,000 crores of compensation.
1,000 crores.
That 50,000 crores to the compensation to the states, this is without the demonetization scenario. 50,000 crores compensation to the state, 24,000 crores will come from a cess that the central government puts on environmental cleanliness, and the remaining quantum will be put as a cess on cigarettes, on pan masala, and on luxury cars and aerated drinks. This is what the central government proposed. They expect to collect 50,000. Now, given the current demonetization, the tax collection of the states is going to plummet. Let me tell you, certain BJP finance ministers after the meeting were very concerned on this. Forget us. They said, what is going to happen to our, what about health, what about education, what about law and order, what about agriculture? All of this is in the hands of the states. And if our taxes decline because production declines, as I have given you data on, central government taxes will also decline. Because if you have a GDP decline by 2%, their tax collection will decline. And the whole system will come into question as to whether they can compensate the states despite the constitutional process.
Dr. Mitra, it seems clear that perhaps the government will push this through as a money bill, because the draft law does have tax rates in it. The IGST as well as the CGST has a rate that has been capped as part of the draft law, sir. Do you believe the government will now, given the fact that there is opposition from the most vociferous supporters of the goods and services tax, the Trinamool has been the most vociferous supporter of the goods and services tax, do you believe that this is now going to take the money bill route?
This is where again the dictatorial issues come up. Money bill is a bill where there will be no discussion. It will not come to the Rajya Sabha. It will be just pushed through. Is that the India we want to see? Have a discussion, because we have not yet concluded on 3-4 major issues. we have not yet concluded on dual control, you know that. Below 1.5 crores, should the small guy, the barber, the beauty parlor face double control, state and center? State is saying below 1.5, please leave it to the states. Above 1.5, we agree, let there be dual control on cross-empowerment. This has not been settled yet. The rules have not been settled. I have serious concerns on the rules for the second and third meeting, just as many of my finance ministers have serious concerns on the rules.
What concerns, sir? What concerns specifically?
I will not allude to you here simply because I have to go to I don't want to, it has a confidentiality matter. I would rather speak in the GST Council than in the media, but there are concerns. Now, in the same way, let me submit to you, the whole structure is being revisited constantly by us in the GST Council. After the rules come the question of this being converted into an act, and on top of that, if you tell me that this is going to be a money bill, what is the point of this discussion in GST Council? What is the point of not having a discussion in Parliament where all parties are there and almost all parties are supporting GST?
Do you believe a breakthrough is possible on the 3rd and 4th of December when the GST Council meets? Do you believe there is still hope for the GST bill going through in the winter session and for the rollout on the 1st of April, sir?
I think there are two elements to it. One is the consensus to emerge on the GST itself. That means, will you have dual control below 1.5 crores? Where many states have lined up saying we should not have dual control. That has to be settled. On the rules case, we'll have to go with a tooth comb, with a fine print, and make sure for the nation as a whole that these are good. Third, we have not yet discussed item-wise. 1,400 items minimally have to be decided on which tax bracket it will fall under. I am getting every day emails from different associations of different components. We have not yet discussed it. So we need to fix that. And then we go to the next question, shouldn't it come as a finance bill? So that the nation can debate and maybe improve it in some way. Now then you suddenly decide, after, if there is consensus of these, we suddenly put a money bill and push it through. My question is, when you say tax rates are there, therefore it's a money bill, this is not a tax rate issue. This is the biggest fiscal reform in the world. And you don't want to discuss it. You want to treat it as a money bill because there are some tax rates in it. Is this fair? I would like to ask democratic people.
You know, we're running out of time, sir. I believe that the opposition is hoping to meet with the president tomorrow to take up the issue of the income tax amendments that were brought in and cleared by Parliament yesterday. I understand that the opposition would like the president not to give his assent to those income tax amendments. Can you share with us what the argument is going to be? Because Parliament has already given its nod.
You see, the point is very simple. You demonetize. You find that it is not working. Now you bring in an amnesty and create new tax structures. On top of that, you say that the CRR, cash reserve ratio of banks, 100% absorption of what is being put into this. I don't think that any economist will tell you there's no history of this in the world. That CRR shoots through the roof. By the way, United States does not have CRR. And we were in the process of reducing CRR from 10% down. Now you say 100% of the incremental deposits in the bank will all go into your vault. That means you withdraw money supply of that quantum into your vault. Now these are unprecedented, anarchic processes I have never seen in world economic history.
Well, the government's argument is that there's excess liquidity. The government's argument is there's excess liquidity in the banking system and the CRR hike is a temporary hike to take care of that, sir.
See, everything has become temporary. Today you announce 14 different temporary measures. Tomorrow you announce another 5. Then you provide amnesty. This is anarchic. There is no game plan. There is no clarity on storyboarding, on structures. This is happening on the feet. Your chief economic advisor probably even didn't know demonetization. Which economist was consulted, I would like to know. Why is Amartya Sen coming out? Why is Jeffrey Sachs coming out? Obviously, there's a vacuum of ideas led by a dictatorial process. I'm sorry to say I've never seen this in the economic history of the world.
Well, Dr. Mitra, unfortunately, we're out of time, sir, but thank you very much for joining us, sharing the data that the West Bengal government has been able to put together. In fact, you've given us data about other governments, and thank you very much for giving us some sense of what we could expect as far as the negotiations on the goods and services tax are concerned. We still hope that there will be some sort of a breakthrough in those negotiations. Thanks very much for your time. That's Amit Mitra, the Finance Minister of Bengal, and of course the chairperson of the State Finance Ministers on the Goods and Services Tax. Time for